Hi, I'm Harry from One Direction, and this is our autobiography. When I was a kid, I think I was always a bit of a show-off. From when I was pretty small, my mum always thought I'd entertain in some way. I think it was from when my sister used to come out of school. I used to roll the window down and be in my car seat and be shouting and stuff because I was a show-off. But I don't think I really knew exactly what I wanted to do. I never really wanted to do much at school. I wasn't bad at school, I just preferred kind of messing around a bit, but I think everyone does, so that's fine. I enjoyed the performing part of school and stuff more than anything else, so I think that's when I kind of realised that was what I wanted to do more. I think I had quite a nice upbringing. My family was really nice to me, and they're just good. My parents always wanted me to kind of go out and try things, and they never told me I couldn't do loads of stuff, and they were really supportive all the time. And I think they just, in terms of kind of actually growing up, I think I'm lucky that my parents brought me up that way. I have no idea what constitutes a good parent, but I think they were pretty good ones. I think if you're a parent, you set an example by obviously showing your children, and I think my parents I've never seen either of my parents act as if they were ever above anyone, or so I always kind of grew up thinking that everyone was equal and everyone's the same, and it doesn't matter if you kind of have a really big amazing job or you clean toilets or whatever, that everyone's kind of the same. I think looking back on the whole X Factor experience, it's amazing to think how young I was thinking back, and when I look at things about it, I looked like I'm about 12, and I think it's amazing to kind of try and comprehend the fact that I was just I was a kid, and I think we'll always be so grateful for the opportunity that it gave us, because obviously X Factor is a huge platform, and I think it was a show that I always watched with my family when I was growing up, and watched with friends and stuff, and obviously it was already kind of a big part of it then. It was something that I liked doing, and now obviously it's had such a huge impact on my life and kind of my family's life, and I think there's a lot of people who kind of come off it and try and get away from it really fast, and I just have no problem kind of acknowledging the fact that had a huge part in everything. We wouldn't be kind of able to do what we're able to do if it wasn't for X Factor, I think obviously you have to do stuff afterwards, and you have to work really hard and kind of make the most of it, but if we didn't have X Factor, then the door wouldn't have been opened in the first place. I was pretty emotional when we signed the record deal. I remember I was still 16, and every time we went in, I was so nervous walking in to the building. I think coming from quite a small place where it's not that culturally vast, it was everyone was pretty much the same. And then walking into a record label, I always felt like I was walking into a different planet. It was big marble everywhere. It was all shiny, and it was people that I'd listened to on the radio and watched on TV and stuff were kind of all over the wall, and I think it was just cool. I think when I was that young, I was kind of in awe of it every time we went into the office, and it was amazing. when you go in at such like a young age and you're working with a songwriter and producer who've done kind of all these amazing songs and you haven't done anything in a studio, you definitely don't feel comfortable to say, like, what if I sing it like this instead? Maybe we should change some stuff. It's like if you're like a kid and you have no idea what you're doing, you're never gonna tell someone who's had a million number ones how a song should be done. So, but at the same time, I think it was right that we did it that way. I think it was important for us to listen and kind of learn and to do what was being asked of us, and then later you kind of take those lessons and try and adapt it from there, rather than just jumping into the deep end and trying to write songs when you have no real idea how it kind of works. So I think we did that in the right way the first few sessions. By the time our debut single was ready, it was weird. I felt like a sense of responsibility that the song, it was like we'd had so much support from the fans and stuff up to that point. I felt like they'd done so much for us over kind of social media, and, you know, came down to the recording studios and X Factor and just kind of did obviously so much for us. I think it felt kind of like it was a nervous time, because I felt like it was time for us to kind of give them something back. We hadn't obviously had any of our music yet for them, so it was a big moment to kind of live up to it and kind of give them something. I think we were just praying that people liked it, because if we didn't, they'd be like, oh, right, okay, maybe not, I'll go home. But I think music's just so important. I think every time it's a new album or a new song, you have to kind of earn the support, and the early nerves are still they're still there when we hear kind of new songs going out on the radio for the first time, just like the first time we heard What Makes You Beautiful on the radio. 2011 was a really good year. It was the X Factor tour. There was lots of like promo and interviews and radio stuff all over the place. The single had just gone number 1. The album had just gone number 2. Thanks, Rihanna. But it was just a crazy period for us, I think, when we started to realise that maybe the band was actually taking off a little bit. By the time we got to the December tour, to kind of support the album, we were still pretty nervous. When I look back, it's kind of hard to think that I was only 17 at the time, and it's weird thinking about how much time has passed, because while it's gone really quick, it kind of also it feels like a long time ago. Like, I feel really young being 20, so thinking back to when I was 17, remembering all the stuff that happened is mad. And I think the whole thing's kind of ridiculous when I sit and think about it. Anyone from England going to the States is kind of really excited. I think the nearest feeling I'd had to that first trip was when I first came to London, because when I was growing up, London was like, to me it felt like it was a different country, and that sounds really weird, but it was just like, it seemed so far away. I just felt like I'd never go. And I just loved the excitement of being somewhere that's filled with kind of things you've seen on TV and in movies and stuff. And I think that's the thing about like America in general, and especially like Hollywood, is you kind of get that feeling every time you go anyway. LA is somewhere that I feel like good being in. I think there's something about waking up to the sunshine. That's probably a massive cliche, but I do like that. And I think it's just a feeling of wanting to kind of get out of bed and kind of be outside, and it makes you want to do stuff. And I think if you're like in England, everyone wants to get outside, and the weather's never good enough, and you're like working in offices and stuff, and I think the thing is there, you have like breakfast and lunch, and dinner all outside, so you kind of get your fix of being outside. So when you have to go and do some work, you actually don't mind. And I think it's mainly the weather. Like, even if your car breaks down, you're just kind of chilling in the sun for a bit. It's actually not that bad. First big shock was when we flew back into the UK. We went on like our first work trip to America, and then we flew back to the UK, and it was into Heathrow, and it was like a really big moment for us because there was just so many people, and we'd never experienced that before, and it was just it was really intense. We ended up going out in like a riot van, which was probably a little over the top, but it was fun. It's hard to kind of like think to yourself like, oh, this is kind of getting big. I think that's a really weird way of thinking about it. I think the thing that kind of intrigued us about it was just how many interviews we were doing. It was just a lot, and I think we kind of thought if we were doing this many, then the album might kind of be doing something. So I think What Makes You Beautiful went top 30, and that kind of ramped it up another level as well. We did a signing in a shopping mall that was it was just nuts, and it was the first one we'd done over there, and we thought there'd be maybe like 100 people, something like that. And there was just like thousands of people, and it was really surprising. And I think that was kind of when the momentum seemed to kind of snowball a little bit. And then we got a support slot touring with Big Time Rush, which was massive for us because it was so early for us being in the States. It was nice to kind of have the guys having us on stage. And I think on the first night we saw someone wearing a One Direction t-shirt, and we all kind of said, that's wicked. We kind of had no idea. And then they all know the words. They all knew the words to all the songs. And I don't know, it was weird. It was like, even if we didn't, no one would really say it, and even if we didn't really want to believe that it was kind of like that with people wearing t-shirts and stuff, it was just cool because we could kind of feel it. When people kind of sang it, we weren't expecting them to know the words. I think we've always been proud of the live shows that we put on. And I think with things that were kind of happening in the charts, I think we'd seen the album kind of doing well in different countries and stuff, and I think it was really important that we went out and kind of proved ourselves a bit. I think we wanted to kind of get out and perform the record to the fans who'd got it and the fans who liked it, and it was just kind of important for us to kind of justify why it was number one. I kind of, if you have an album that's number one and then the show's awful, it's a bit like, So I think for us, we just wanted to put on a show where people would come and say, even if you're not a massive fan of the band, you can leave and kind of say, that's a good show. The bit I found difficult early on was I used to get really nervous before stage, and there was one time we were on a show in the UK, and there was a bit where I sang, and I just sounded awful. I'd kind of worked myself up over it and was just too nervous, and I just sounded really not good. And it played on my mind afterwards for ages, because in like rehearsals and stuff I'd done it fine, and then when it came to the actual thing on camera, it just wasn't good. And I think even standing on stage used to make me really nervous. And I don't know, I think you can learn to kind of turn your nerves into something else, and you can kind of control them a bit more. I don't know.